Hello everybody, Disciple here with Hearthstone Curios. Jeremy is off shuffling Jade Idol, so in the meantime I'll be filling in for him. As more and more cards come out and Hearthstone gets older and older as a game, power creep is definitely something that deserves to be talked about. For those who might not be familiar with the term, there's basically two kinds of power creep in games. There's direct power creep, which means in this case Blizzard would make a card that's strictly better than an already existing card. For example, you have Magma Rager and Ice Rager. There's also indirect power creep, which deals more with the power level of expansions altogether. Most people, for example, would say that Mean Streets of Gadgetzan has stronger cards on average than an expansion like the Grand Tournament. Now we're going to be focusing on indirect power creep in this video, so let's jump right in and talk a little bit about the power level of different expansions and whether increasing or decreasing that power level is good or bad for the game in general. So to take a look at power creep across expansions, we need two to compare so we can kind of illustrate our point. League of Explorers and One Night in Karazhan are two pretty good ones to compare, since they were adventures that came out one after the other, and they're pretty small sets so it's a lot easier to analyze them. Now we can sort of count the cards that were played in high tier constructed decks or made an impact in constructed at some point in the meta. This makes a lot more sense to do over time, since right now not a lot of cards from either expansion are being played. Now this isn't a perfect analysis or necessarily one to draw conclusions from or anything, but the difference is pretty big, so it's definitely worth comparing. Now let's start with League of Explorers since it came out first. League of Explorers had Mounted Raptor, Raven Idol, Desert Camel, Ethereal Conjurer, Forgotten Torch, Anything Can Happen, Keeper of Uldamon, Excavated Evil, Entomb, Museum Curator, Tomb Pillager, Unearthed Raptor, Tunnel Trog, Reliquary Seeker, Dark Peddler, Cursed Blade, Fierce Monkey, Rafam, Reno, Elise, Bran, Finley, Jeweled Scarab, and Huge Toad. That's 24 cards that were played in somewhat high tier decks, or at least mid tier, at some point in the meta after the expansion came out, and while a few of them may not have been incredibly impactful, the majority are really strong meta-defining cards. Think about Finley, Bran, Elise, Reno, these have all been amazingly impactful in the game. So what about One Night in Karazhan? Well, we have Menagerie Warden, Enchanted Raven, Cat Trick, Cloaked Huntress, Kindly Grandmother, Firelands Portal, Babbling Book, Ivory Knight, Priest of the Feast, Swashbuckler, Maelstrom Portal, Spirit Claws, Silverware Golem, Malchezaar's Imp, Ironforge Portal, Barnes, the Curator, Arcane Giant, Bookworm, and Netherspite Historian. This list features 20 cards, which is only 4 less than League of Explorers, but there's a lot more stretches and less impactful cards on this list compared to LoE. Additionally, looking specifically at the legendaries, only 2 from Karazhan were really playable, and the Curator was never that great, while Barnes has fallen off a lot in the recent meta, although he was seen a lot before. In contrast, the only LoE legendary that was questionable was really Rafam, but it still did see some play. Reno is probably one of the most meta-defining cards ever. Finley has seen consistent play in a variety of decks, especially aggro. Bran has also seen very consistent play, and Elise has been in and out of Control Warrior a ton and dominated the meta at one point. Additionally, pretty much every class in League of Explorers got some decent cards, whereas in Karazhan, there were really a lot of bad filler class cards like Purify, Deadly Fork, Protect the King, and a few others. So what's our point here? Well, Karazhan likely could have been a much better expansion with an overall higher power level of cards. Because a lot of the cards were pretty bad to average, and even most of the good cards were playable but not insane, it caused the expansion to have somewhat less of an impact than it could have otherwise. LoE saw the release of a lot of powerful cards and so ended up affecting the meta a lot more. Now, power creep is no replacement for exciting design, nor is it necessarily a good way to make sure that fun and wacky cards see play and that the meta is balanced. But overall, if Blizzard is too careful with the power level of an expansion, that expansion tends to have very little effect on the game overall. Because at the end of the day, if the cards suck, no one's gonna play them, and if Blizzard tries too hard to avoid power creep, you can be left with dull expansions that have very little effect on the meta. The Grand Tournament, for example, features the Joust and Inspire mechanics, which were really cool mechanics, but because Blizzard tried so hard to be very fair and balanced with them, they ended up not seeing a lot of play. And that's a real shame because those mechanics are really sweet and definitely could have had a ton of impact if they had just pushed more cards with those keywords that were a little bit stronger on their own. As it is, you pretty much have to go play Arena to be able to enjoy those mechanics. Now, obviously it's too much to ask to have every card be great, and Ben Brode really has some good explanations as to why some bad cards are necessary for a card game to have, but at the very least, each mechanic should feature at least a few cards that Blizzard wants or expects to even get played and constructed, since as the power level rises, so do the power level of the new cards that they want to see play. Those are some of our thoughts on power creep and the changing power levels of expansions and cards. How powerful do you want Blizzard to make cards? Let us know in the comments. And it looks like that's going to be it from me. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd love it if you drop a like and subscribe for more Hearthstone videos in the future. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.